This morning, I finished up a 24-hour speedrun where I took an idea for a software startup and turned it into a launched MVP all within 24 hours. And in this video, I want to walk you through the exact process that I used to get from idea to launch in those 24 hours. So we're going to be going through my 8 steps for building a startup fast. So we're going to go into how I further explore the idea, how I scope out exactly what I'm going to build in the MVP, the stack that I chose, how I arrived at my solution for branding, how I designed the application, and then developed it, added analytics, and launched it with some marketing. I've worked with numerous startups and indie hackers to launch their products, and what I see time and time again is people put too much time, money, and energy into their product before they take it to the market and get feedback. The ones that I see perform the best get their idea out there as soon as possible and start putting value into the hands of their prospective users. And so that's why I see it as so valuable to be able to take your idea, figure out what the value is that you're really trying to deliver, and to turn that into something that you can take to the world and get feedback on, all within a very short time period. So without further ado, let's get into my process.
Okay, so we're sat down. I'm going to try and take you through this as quickly as possible, whilst also giving you as much value and detail as I think is useful. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. My links will be in my YouTube bio. Go find them there. Drop me a message. Really keen to help and support anyone that's building in the software space. And I'm also a freelance software developer. So if you want your SaaS built out and you're not technical, or you don't have the time to execute the technical side in this way, then just let me know. I'd be very keen to have a conversation and see how I might be able to help. So quickly, to give you some context into the 24-hour process that I did, I originally planned to do the whole thing on live stream, and it didn't work out due to Wi-Fi problems. But I put out the call last Friday to say, I want to build someone's SaaS idea for free in 24 hours, really just to show this process and how I would do that. And my friend Dan, he reached out and said, there's this idea. I think it's exciting. And so he gave me the idea. I'm building it for him, and he has experience marketing products like this. So hopefully it's something we can take somewhere. But the first step in building a startup fast is ideation. So getting a really good understanding of what it is you're building, who you're building it for, and why it may be valuable to them. So I explore the idea deeply with the help of an LLM. If I'm doing it alone, I'll use an LLM. If I have someone with me, then it's really good to bounce back and forth ideas around these questions and get a really strong understanding in your head of what it is you're doing. So what makes your product unique? What do our ideal customers look like? How are these customers likely to use the product? To give you some context into what we were building, we were making group chats better for staying in touch. So myself and a lot of my friends, we're in a lot of group chats, but we just use them for organizing things. We don't really use them to actually stay in touch with each other and build those connections and understand what we're all doing in our lives. So we decided this turn-taking based, audio-based update. So once a month, each of you and your friends give a 5-minute voice note to the group to keep them up to date with what you're doing with your life. And so that's what we built. And so my process of going through this was like the USP, there's nothing really out there like this. I actually started by focusing on a particular demographic. So our primary customer was males in their late 20s to early 40s. And the USP really hinges on the fact that the only support thing available to them is existing group chats, which don't really work from my experience, and very organized support circles, which just feel a lot more high touch, and you're doing it with strangers rather than your mates. So there's nothing really out there in the market that I could see that's quite like this, which was great. I figured out the pricing. I figured out how we'd be taking this to market, which was primarily short form content. And we figured out, who our customers would likely be. And there was a few different types of customer groups that I was trying to think of throughout the design and development process. Then defining scope. So figuring out what is the value that you're actually delivering for users? What are they getting out of using your application? And in order to deliver that value, what features do we need to deliver? And then I just cut out everything that isn't contributing to that value. Okay, so I cut as much as possible. I cut all the features until there is literally the minimum amount of functionality in order to give the user the valuable experience they need in order to pay for the platform. So really think about what are the features that you need to convey your idea and what are the features that you need to deliver value to your user. For me, that was having a decent brand to start with, having a landing page, having payment set up, having authentication and onboarding, the ability for people to accept and reject join requests to their group, an interface for recording updates that you can share with other people in your group, a feed to see everybody's updates, notifications to everyone in the group to say this person's uploaded their update, the ability to react, some scheduling, and I actually cut this in the end, so we can take that out. Scheduling and notifications for turn taking, so it's your turn to share your update, and then also an admin side, so I can see who's signing up to the platform and how they're using it. So once I was sure that that's what I need to deliver in order to convey the concept that I'm building and deliver the value that a user needs in order to part with their cash, I moved on to defining my tech stack. And the approach that I take with choosing your tech stack is that familiarity should always come first, because that allows you to be fast. So work with technologies that you know and understand and are familiar working with. It helps you to get over those bugs and issues a lot faster. And I also choose simple solutions rather than sophisticated solutions. Okay, something might not have the functionality that is going to take you all the way to being a decent sized startup. But if you choose something simple, it allows you to go fast. And you can always build in the sophisticated solution later on. In a similar vein, I always choose expensive and fast over affordable and slow. For example, in this instance, I needed an SMS API, and I could have used Twilio or Vonage, but I find that API documentation quite difficult to work with. They're very sophisticated solutions, and so they're slower to work with. And so I chose they're slower to work with. They are more affordable, but in this instance, I chose another provider that was more simple, faster for me to use, and yes, it's more expensive, but that's the right trade-off to make at this point in time. In terms of my tech stack, I use Next.js deployed on Vercel. I used TextBelt as my SMS platform. I use BetterAuth for all the authentication handling, Ingest for doing the scheduling and turn-taking processing in the background, Stripe for payments, Neon as my database, and Prisma as my ORM. Then we move on to branding. Okay, so in terms of the 24 hours, I was probably about 2 or 3 hours in at this point, and I moved on to branding. So I always start with feeling. What is it that we need to convey? What do our target demographic want to feel when they're using a platform like this? And for me, trying to speak to a late 20s to early 40s male audience, it needed to be sophisticated and not feel immature or playful. So I went away and collected some inspiration. I really liked Clubhouse as a good example of like, this is warm and friendly, but also has a kind of elevated, sophisticated feel to it without being exclusive. So it's a difficult balance. But yeah, I really liked that piece of inspiration. Then I had to name it. So I don't like to waste too much time on naming. It needs to be appropriate, set the tone for the brand, and be easy to pronounce and share. I use LLMs to explore options when I'm on my own. And I really like this guide, How to Name Anything in an Afternoon. And the same guy has built out this LLM-based guided naming experience, which I think is actually where the sideline name that I used for this project came from in the end. So it comes up with ideas. I choose my favorite one and moved on. Then I go through a whole process of exploring domains. So I can actually show you down here. I go through, I'm like, okay, I like these brand names. Let's see what domains we can get. And so I tried a load of different options. At the end, I liked this usesideline.com. So we went with Sideline. I felt that, yeah, it was appropriate. It set the tone for the brand and it's easy to pronounce. I purchased the domain and then I try not to overthink the logo too much. Again, it needs to be simple, distinctive, and appropriate. This is something that's going to need refining and improving later on in your startup journey, but you can't get hung up on it at this point because people aren't buying based on your logo. Okay, it's more about the concept, the way you're presenting it, and how effective your technology is at solving the problem that the user has. And so I collect references from cosmos.so. It's basically like a snobby version of Pinterest. I combine the best options. In this instance, I wanted circles and I wanted some kind of like audio or waveform element. And then when I combined it with the italic typography that I chose, this is a suitable mark that I came up with. I don't think it's ideal. I think it'll probably need changing in the future. With typography and colors, just keep it classy. I chose Playfair and Manrope. I felt that this made sure that it was modern, elevated, and somewhat sophisticated. And then I pull it all together just by making a really simple landing page, seeing how the message comes across with this branding and just getting a feel for the branding choices I've made in a real life context. Then we move on to designing the application. And when I'm doing a speed run like this, I don't want to go into every pixel of every screen. I don't feel like it's a good use of your time. I'm just thinking about the journey that a user needs to take from landing on the site to experiencing value from the platform. What is the value that the user needs to experience, and how fast can I get them there? And just laying out that flow so when I jump into development, I know what I'm doing. And then I will more fully design a couple of the screens just to get a better feeling for the branding. So I kind of did that with the landing page. I was like, yeah, this looks pretty on point for this stage. It's not perfect, but it's in the right ballpark, and that's good enough for me for now. So I went through this flow trying to figure out, in terms of onboarding, what questions do we need to ask the user, in what order, in order to get them signed in on the platform, and how does that first user who's going in and setting up a group for all of their mates to join, what is the experience that they need to have in order to be the person who then goes ahead and pays before all their mates join. And so there were some decisions I made here. For example, allowing them to send their first message and see that in the group before they have to pay in order to get their invite link. The alternative would have been to have Stripe straight after they sign up, but at that point they haven't really got a feel for the platform. They don't know whether it's worth them spending the money. So yeah, that's as far as I go with design, and then I just jump into development. I'm like, okay, it's clear what I need to do here. And with development, I take a bottleneck approach. So it's essentially figuring out what is the next problem to solve. So starting with the landing page, I like to keep it really simple. I don't like to make it all glamorous and flashy, because ultimately we're just trying to communicate our concept at this stage. We don't have loads of features to talk about. We don't have loads of testimonials to show off. So let's just keep it simple. Let's make a page that is worth someone reading. Communicate your concept in as few words and as little time as possible. So simple landing page. I knew that I wanted a demo video in there and literally an explanation of the application in very few words and a call to action. Then I built out the authentication. So this was all SMS based. So they send their number, they get back a one-time passcode, and that gets them in. Then we took them through onboarding. So the first user that comes in records their message for the group and uploads that. And then it's really thinking about the value journey. How do we get them to that value point? And I think recording this, setting up their group, recording their first update, that's like, okay, this is how this platform works. And then it's time to invite their friends. And that's where we put the payment link in. And then basically you get into this space where it's like, okay, I've built out the flow. I've got authentication in. I might have pulled on a couple of my resources here, but now it's time to get payments in. And so that always adds a little bit of complexity. And at this stage, I'm just figuring out what is the thing that is stopping me from building the next screen all the way through the value journey until the user's experienced value, they've paid. Then how do we get the other people onto the platform? And then we need to kind of go back through the platform and see what we've missed. So there's always little screens. There's always edit this title, update this record. You know, there's always those little annoying things, but I don't like to let them get in the way of building out the main value journey. I build that out first and then go back through and add in all the other bits later on. Then I add in analytics. So I install something like PostHog and I build out admin pages so I can see new signups. And another thing I like to do is track moments where the user is experiencing or creating value. So in the instance of my application, it'd be whenever they send an update to their mates or when they invite their mates and new people join. So metrics I would track is like how many members are there in a group, how many updates have been shared in a group. And that gives you a really good understanding of where the bottleneck is. If you're getting a lot of signups, but you're not getting members added to groups, or you're not getting groups created, or there's not being updates posted into the group, then you know you have a problem related to one of those issues and how that works within your application in terms of notifying the user, reminding them, or the actual experience of them putting the data that's necessary into the platform. PostHog is great because it gives you insight. So already today, we launched about 6 hours ago. We've had 7 users. It's nothing crazy, but we're just getting it out there. So very early days. But the great thing is PostHog gives you this insight. You can also turn on like the screen recording and like heat map stuff so you can see particular issues that people are facing. So you can jump in, fix those bugs, and help them overcome those problems. Also really useful when you're having testing from like non-technical users, they always give you very rough descriptions of the problem they're facing, which is really hard to understand. So you can go in, find their like PostHog recording, watch that back and actually know what they're talking about. Finally, a little note on marketing. My recommendation is just to start small. Okay, so I would always add a demo video to the landing page. This is just a 1-minute video which shares why we've built this and here are the main features to look out for. Super simple, but it allows someone to land on this page and without doing a huge amount of thinking, get some insight into what it is that you've built. Then I would just do outreach to friends. So I've kind of done this in a great scaled way over the past week of just posting a load of content, daily updates on my story of like, this is the live stream that's coming up. Who's got ideas for it? This is what I'm going to be building. Those kind of stories, which has really engaged a lot of my friendship group, which has been great. I also managed to live stream portions of the thing, which people showed up to and commented on and engaged with, which was brilliant. And kind of the knock-on effect of that is people just reaching out and being like, congrats on the stream. Where's the link? Gus to try it out. Going to get some of my mates on it, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. And that just gives us that early momentum so that we can start getting people on the platform, start getting some people to test it, giving them maybe some free time to use the platform so they can give you feedback on bugs and test it for you on different devices and in different scenarios. Then eventually, once we get beyond the kind of immediate network of friends and family to test and try these things out, it's finding a platform that is most appropriate for whatever you're building. So it could be LinkedIn, it could be Reddit, it could be TikTok, Instagram, whatever that is, wherever your demographics spend their time. Then you just want to figure out a simple and consistent way to get results on those platforms. I also think it's very beneficial to partner with others who have marketing experience if you don't have marketing experience yourself. On this one, I built this for Dan, so he's already messaged me to say he's going to make a TikTok account and start warming it up. He has a lot of experience doing this AI UGC style content on TikTok and having great success with it for consumer applications. So that is the 8 steps for building a startup fast. I managed to do that in 24 hours. It was hard graft, but now we have something we can take to the market and get feedback on, which is the most valuable thing as an early stage software-based business. I hope you find that useful. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. My links will be in my YouTube bio. Go find them there. Drop me a message. Really keen to help and support anyone that's building in the software space. And I'm also a freelance software developer. So if you want your SaaS built out and you're not technical or you don't have the time to execute the technical side in this way, then just let me know. I'd be very keen to have a conversation and see how I might be able to help. Aside from that, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.